A headline from the Washington Post for every day of January 2021. Third state identifies UK virus variant as US surpasses 20 million cases. Cruz and cadre of other GOP senators vow not to certify Biden win without probe of baseless voter fraud claims. An extraordinary hour-long call, Trump pressures Georgia Secretary of State to recalculate vote. Trump pressures GOP official in Georgia to find votes. Both parties race to finish in Georgia as Trump casts shadow over Senate runoffs. Pro-Trump mob storms Capitol building. After chaos, calls for Trump's removal. Trump faces mounting demands to leave office or face impeachment. Capitol attack stoked by false claims of vote fraud and promises of violent restoration. As Trump leaves office weakened, Republicans wonder if his political wounds are fatal. Pelosi says House will move on impeaching Trump if Pence doesn't act by Wednesday on removal. FBI report warned of war at Capitol, contradicting claims there was no sign of looming violence. Trump impeached again. State and federal officials turned focus to security. Rioters storming Capitol came dangerously close to Pence. 3 days before attack, Capitol Police report warned Congress could be targeted. Republicans call for unity won't attest Biden won fairly. FBI moves on alleged members of extremist groups after riot. McConnell says Trump provoked mob, hearings underway for Biden nominees. Biden takes office. Biden plans for tougher stance on Russia. Senate confirms Austin as first black defense secretary. GOP opposition to stimulus relief intensifies. Fight over the rules grinds the Senate to a halt, imperiling Biden's agenda. Biden lifts ban on transgender Americans in military. Biden to reopen ACA insurance marketplaces amid pandemic. Watchdog says officials misused biomedical research funds for years. First U.S. cases of South Africa virus variant reported in South Carolina. New single-shot COVID-19 vaccine effective in U.S. trial, less so in South Africa. FBI probes of U.S. Capitol riot finds evidence assault was coordinated. GOP senators propose deal on virus relief, request meeting with Biden. A headline for every day of February 2021. New diabetes cases linked to COVID-19. Impeachment managers say Trump singularly responsible for Capitol riot. House to vote on removing GOP's Marjorie Taylor Greene from committees. Romney unveils plan for $3,000 per child, giving effort bipartisan support. House set to advance budget plan as Biden pushes $1.9 trillion package. Slaying of FBI agents in Florida raises questions about tactics and intelligence. UK coronavirus variant spreads rapidly through U.S., study finds. Democrats split over criteria for $1,400 payment as relief bill advances. Senate poised to begin historic second impeachment trial of Trump. House managers begin to lay out case that Trump incited rioters. House managers wrap case and warn Trump could incite more violence. Trump team calls his impeachment unconstitutional act of political vengeance. Democrats abandon plan to call witnesses, clearing way for final vote. Chaos before Trump's acquittal, inside Democrats' 11th hour witness dilemma. Trump's acquittal widens divide in GOP. Pelosi says there will be 9/11-style commission to probe Capitol riot. Millions of jobs unlikely to come back, even after pandemic, economists warn. Democrats to formally introduce Biden citizenship bill. Biden warns global leaders democratic progress is under assault. How the Oklahoma City bombing case prepared Merrick Garland to take on domestic terrorism. U.S. nears grim COVID milestone of 500,000 deaths. Garland says Capitol riot probe will be first priority. FBI warning of potential violence reached Capitol Police, but leaders say they didn't see it. Postal Service head goes before House panel. Facing pushback in Congress, Biden courts GOP governors. Biden pushes full-time school, but districts are cautious, citing CDC guidelines. As Texans went without power, some companies scored a payday. Supreme Court to again consider protections for minority voters. A headline for every day of March 2021. Single-shot vaccine deepens worries over inequities. Merck will help make Johnson & Johnson vaccine boosting supply. Biden limits eligibility for stimulus payments. Texas family detention centers to become rapid processing hubs. With Biden's agenda at stake, pressure to end filibuster grows. Senate votes to approve $1.9 trillion relief plan. Narrow victory on relief bill shows warning signs for Biden agenda. CDC issues guidelines for what people can do once fully vaccinated. Task force urges free lung cancer screenings for millions more smokers. Biden to announce U.S. will secure 100 million more J&J vaccine doses. GOP-backed measures could create hurdles for millions of voters. Justice Department aims to build big conspiracy case versus Oath Keepers for Capitol riot. IRS is behind on issuing tax refunds as it copes with stimulus. New York vaccine czar called county officials to gauge loyalty to Cuomo amid probe. 2 charged with assaulting U.S. Capitol Police officer who died after riot. Army pushed to deny D.C.'s request for National Guard before January 6th. Suspect in deadly Georgia spa shootings may have frequented businesses, authorities say. First court appearance canceled for Georgia shooting suspect. CDC guideline change paves way for more in-person learning. Amid national spotlight on bias, Asian American leaders struggle over where to take movement. Pentagon chief makes surprise trip to Afghanistan. 11th hour push on stimulus led Biden to quietly create a huge social program. 10 victims in Boulder grocery store shooting identified, suspect in hospital. Terror in a Boulder supermarket, how the King Soopers shooting unfolded. Biden poised to hold first formal White House news conference. As ship remains stuck in Suez Canal, signs of global economic toll emerge. Gun control activists gird for tough national fight after mass shootings. White House and private firms developing plans for vaccine passports. Ship stuck in Suez Canal is freed. Millions might miss out on looming economic boom. Navarro warned Trump of virus supply shortage, then pursued his own deals. A headline for every day of April 2021. Lawmakers and businesses gird for battle over tax hikes that Biden proposes. Border crossings in March jumped to highest level in 15 years, data shows. Inside a stealth persuasion machine promising GOP victories in 2022. U.S. emerges as main engine for global economic recovery. Yellen says slow vaccine rollout in poor countries poses threat to global economy. Officials eye youth sports as possible engine of variant-driven outbreaks. Biden sees infections climb on his watch. They could erase hard-won gains. Biden unveils executive orders to tighten gun restrictions. Biden budget seeks funding hikes for healthcare, education, and environment. Supreme Court strikes down another limit on religious services. For immigrants, IDs prove to be a barrier to vaccines. Domestic terror incidents surge, led by white supremacists and far-right. FDA and CDC urge pause in use of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Biden says we cannot continue the cycle in Afghanistan. U.S. imposes sanctions on Russia over cyber spying and election influence effort. Indianapolis grieves after 8 killed in mass shooting at FedEx facility. Latest massacres test gun control advocates' resolve. Trump's grip on GOP looms as support falters for independent probe of Capitol riot. Chaotic federal effort to bring Americans home created risks, watchdog says. Vaccine-resistant GOP voters warn that their skepticism is worsening. Justice Department to investigate Minneapolis police practices. Senate passes bill to combat hate crimes against Asian Americans. Cruz maintained ties to right-wing group despite its extremist messaging. U.S. vaccine abundance gives rise to global envy and anger. Biden's $1.8 trillion families plan would reshape taxes and spending. U.S. to share up to 60 million AstraZeneca vaccine doses around the world. CDC says vaccinated Americans can go without masks outdoors except in crowds. Biden to pledge an immigration overhaul. Democrats break with White House to push Medicare expansion. U.S. coronavirus cases drop as spring wave of infections ebbs. A headline for every day of May 2021. Democrats signal they're open to concessions on infrastructure. Rejection of 2020 election results becomes defining GOP loyalty test. As U.S. seeks to outsource immigration enforcement, Mexico gains leverage. White House to redistribute unordered vaccine supply between states. Facebook's Trump ban upheld by Oversight Board. Biden's infrastructure moonshot raises questions about U.S. ambitions. U.S. added just 266,000 jobs in April, well below expectations. Cheney plans lengthy fight to turn GOP from Trump. Small size of most U.S. police departments complicates reform, experts say. Recovery stumble leaves Americans facing unfamiliar inflation risk. Dozens dead as warlike violence erupts in Palestinian territories in Israel. Cheney ousted from GOP leadership for calling out false claims by Trump. Gas stations await relief from panic buying as Colonial restores pipeline service. Israel hits Hamas tunnels in Gaza as all-out war looms. Pipeline shutdown shows how Americans pay the price of efficiency. Pre-dawn Israeli airstrikes killed dozens in Gaza as U.S. pushes for ceasefire. Justices to review laws that advocates see as path to diminish Roe v. Wade. Coronavirus vaccines may not work for those with underlying health issues. Biden tells Netanyahu he expects significant de-escalation today. Treasury targets tax cheats in a proposal that it hopes will bring in $700 billion. Fragile ceasefire leaves Gaza in ruins, Jerusalem on verge of erupting again. U.S. falls below 30,000 daily coronavirus cases. Biden's agenda imperiled as his priorities stall in Congress and a debt fight looms. As hurricane season looms, Biden doubles funds to prep for extreme weather. DHS to issue first-ever cybersecurity regulations for pipelines. Nationwide network helps build resistance to vaccine mandates. White House to propose $6 trillion budget plan and bid to reshape safety net and economy. GOP senators block legislation seeking probe of Capitol riot. Democrats' quandary, whether to kill the filibuster that could kill their agenda. Israeli opposition parties reach agreement to oust Netanyahu. Alzheimer's drug spurs emotional battle as FDA nears deadline for approval. A headline for every day of June 2021. At Amazon warehouses, serious injuries at higher rates than other firms. Voting limits were blocked in Texas, but at least 14 states passed new restrictions. Biden offers GOP corporate tax concession in bid for deal on infrastructure. Facebook suspends Trump for 2 years in response to oversight board. G7 nations reach deal on minimum tax that could affect corporations. Apple's tightly controlled App Store is teeming with scams. Trump allies' push for ballot reviews started quietly in Pennsylvania. FBI-controlled app ensnares scores of alleged criminals in global sting. Federal prisons' banking system shields inmates' cash from court orders and scrutiny. Biden and Boris Johnson agree to updated Atlantic Charter in first meeting. Rising prices in U.S. could rattle other countries amid uneven global recovery. Leaked letters and recordings rock the Southern Baptist Convention. Netanyahu ousted as Israeli parliament approves new government. Senators prepared to sell bipartisan deal on infrastructure to White House. Putin swaggers towards summit with Biden as an old hand in duels with the West. Inside Pfizer's race to produce the world's biggest supply of COVID vaccine. Supreme Court dismisses ACA challenge from Trump administration and GOP-led states. The states cutting off emergency food aid programs or making it harder to qualify. Severe heat and drought are hallmarks of a changing West. Push for LGBTQ civil rights stalls in Senate as advocates search for GOP support. Retail workers are quitting at record rates for higher-paying work. As homicides soar nationwide, mayors see few options for regaining control. Spread of Delta variant renews danger to regions with low vaccination rates. Inside the extraordinary effort to save Trump from COVID-19. 4 dead, 159 missing as officials in Florida search wreckage of fallen building. Engineer warned of major structural damage years before Florida building fell. Death toll rises to 9, more than 150 are still unaccounted for. Justices will not hear Virginia dispute on transgender bathroom rights, a win for students. Grid's looming problem, getting power to where it's needed. Bill Cosby to be released from prison after Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned sexual assault conviction. A headline for every day of July 2021. Justices uphold Arizona voting laws that lower court found unfair to minorities. Trump Organization prosecutors confront accusations of political bias. FBI launches flurry of arrests over attacks on journalists at Capitol riot. Documents key to Trump Organization indictment and perhaps what's to come. On path to 2022, GOP candidates center pitches on Trump's false election claims. Democrats in House view Senate plan to counter China with skepticism. Haiti's president assassinated in his home. Delta variant study highlights challenges, importance of both shots. Students who are vaccinated against virus can go maskless in fall, CDC says. Rent prices soar as economy opens. Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic crew are safely back from space, ushering in a new era. FDA expected to announce new warning on Johnson & Johnson vaccine related to autoimmune disorder. Lawsuits target Texas abortion law, deputizing citizens to sue to enforce ban. U.S. drug overdose deaths surged nearly 30% in 2020. Vaccine hesitancy grows into hostility as conservatives attack efforts. Report says true cost of the American diet goes far beyond the price of food. Exiled Texas Democrats grasp for momentum as GOP presses for their return. Biden faces wide range of tactics to battle nation's other epidemic, the drug crisis. Haiti's acting prime minister to step down amid power struggle. Prime ministers, presidents, and a king found on a list of phones targeted by spyware. A princess raced to escape her father, but her phone appeared on the list. Southern California cities rebel against new mask mandate. Tensions simmer in Haiti amid funeral for assassinated president. Surge of Delta variant poses new political threat to Biden and his agenda. First came the ransomware attacks, now come the lawsuits. VA becomes the first federal agency to mandate COVID vaccinations for its employees. You will die on your knees. D.C. officer recalls being pinned. New CDC mask guidance could upend economy, return to work plans. Johnson & Johnson vaccine production, but not in distribution, cleared to restart in Baltimore. Europe has caught up to the U.S. on vaccines and is using near mandates to get further. Ban on evictions expires as renters face rising COVID cases and lack of aid. A headline for every day of August 2021. Welfare rolls decline during pandemic. Legislators from across U.S. to join Texas lawmakers in D.C. to lobby for voting bills. Cuomo sexually harassed staffers in violation of law, Attorney General concludes. Prospect of big spending plans unleashes a lobbying blitz. Senate infrastructure bill sets stage for major effort on broadband. DeSantis holds hands-off COVID approach as Florida sees record-high hospitalizations. After consuming most of a California town, Dixie Fire fuels more fears. Virus surge sends ripples of alarm through Democrats. UN report warns of grim climate future unless humans act swiftly. New York Governor Cuomo to resign in effort to head off likely impeachment. Biden to convene a summit of democracies in December. Most Americans in highly vaccinated areas now live in COVID hotspots. Afghan forces and senior officials surrender as Taliban closes in. Taliban pushes closer to Kabul. U.S. seeks to avoid battles amid evacuation. Afghan leader leaves country. Assigned government has collapsed. Fear and chaos after Taliban's takeover. Taliban's de facto leader arrives in Afghanistan. Former Afghan President Ghani surfaces in UAE. Afghans waving nation flags stage protests in several cities defying Taliban. European forces cross Taliban lines for rescues, pressuring U.S. to expand efforts. U.S. allies and adversaries hold off on recognizing and aiding the Taliban. U.S. orders use of 18 commercial planes to aid evacuation of Americans and allies. Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine wins full FDA approval. Taliban says Afghans are no longer allowed to flee country from Kabul airport. Afghans running out of money as Taliban bans taking dollars out of country. U.S. and civilian casualties reported in attack outside Kabul airport. U.S. preparing for more ISIS attacks in Kabul, top commander says. Strike killed 2 ISIS-K targets, U.S. says. Ida makes landfall in Louisiana at Category 4. Ida heads into Mississippi with damaging wind and heavy rain. U.S. leaves in Afghanistan reshaped by 2 weeks of chaos and 20 years of war. A headline for every day of September 2021. Taliban presses into last unconquered province. Biden pledges aid after Ida hits southern states, kills at least 17 in Northeast. Booster shots initially may be limited to Pfizer recipients, U.S. officials warn. Consulting speaking fees, how generals thrived after Afghanistan. Scientists and public health experts diverge on when and how the pandemic ends. Millions in U.S. lose jobless aid as federal benefits expire. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signs law creating voting restrictions as opponents sue. U.S. is likely to breach debt ceiling soon unless Congress acts, Yellen says. Biden to sign executive order requiring federal employees to be vaccinated. Millions to face Biden's new rules on vaccines and testing. Employers cautiously back Biden's vaccine push as political opponents fume. Texas abortion law causes some tech workers to rethink job options. Delta variant stress tests back to school plans, infecting kids, forcing closures. U.S. poverty fell overall in 2020 due to stimulus payments. 1 in 500 Americans have died of COVID-19 in another grim pandemic milestone. Ex-Trump aides to spearhead a $310 million effort to fight Biden economic plan. UN predicts globe cold could warm by worrying 2.7 degrees Celsius. Political battle lines harden after general's testimony on Afghanistan. Child care workers are quitting rapidly, a red flag for the economy. GOP maneuvers to block vaccine mandates, undercutting a key policy. In first address to UN, Biden calls for unity on climate change and pandemic. Biden and Macron to meet next month amid dispute over Australian submarine deal. White House to tell agencies to prepare for possible shutdown. Draft report of GOP-backed ballot review in Arizona confirms Biden's win. Changes in booster shot guidance lead to confusion for doctors and patients. Polls close as Merkel era nears its end. Senate GOP prepares to block bill to fund government and stave off default. General Milley says U.S. would have gone to war with Taliban again if military stayed. Federal agencies are still dealing with pandemic backlogs. A shutdown could worsen delays. Senate set to approve funding bill hours before deadline to avert shutdown. A headline for every day of October 2021. Senior Biden aides explored continuing payments even if U.S. breach debt ceiling. White House faces grueling choice over cuts to Biden economic plan. Billions hidden beyond reach. How the global elite hide their wealth in a secretive system. Foreign money hides in U.S. trusts. Some of it is tainted. Republicans gird for battle. Businesses brace for Biden vaccine rule details. Secret trove illuminates the lives of billionaires, buying influence and avoiding taxes. Deal reached to raise debt ceiling into December. Vote could come today. Millions of kids' coronavirus shots prepared as expected approval nears. Imminent effect of redistricting, sharper partisan elbows, less compromise. Thousands of U.S. troops have not yet complied with vaccine mandate as deadlines near. Rigorous planning helped Facebook whistleblower break through. Nearly 3% of U.S. workforce quit their jobs in August. Social Security benefits to rise 5.8%, biggest cost of living bump in decades. Senators aim to block tech giants from prioritizing their products over rivals. DOJ to ask Supreme Court to block Texas abortion law amid legal battle. White House looks to scale back climate initiative after pushback from Manchin. The effects of temporary forces on the economy in 5 charts. Colin Powell, soldier and statesman, dies of COVID complications. Russia's methane leaks, revealed by new satellites, come at planet's peril. Democrats try to rally behind new spending target as Biden pitches retooled vision. Afghan militant held illegally at Guantanamo, judge rules. Where Biden's economic plan appears to stand. Residents of decaying public housing see futures online as Democrats cut spending bill. How Facebook neglected the rest of the world, fueling hate speech and violence in India. Insiders say Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg chose growth over safety. Democrats quietly scrambled to address immigration and social spending bill. GOP used Senate delays to make changes at U.S. product safety regulator. Biden unveils new spending package aimed at attracting all Democrats. A bitter pill. Biden suffers familiar defeat on prescription drug prices. Inside the effort to pressure Manchin and salvage paid family and medical leave. Expectations collide with uncertain reality at crucial climate summit. A headline for every day of November 2021. Justice Department tells Supreme Court abortion law threatens constitutional rights. More than 90 countries join pledge to cut methane emissions. Races leave Democrats reeling. White House vaccine rule to require companies to comply by January 4th. Infrastructure and spending bills could see House vote today. Biden secures infrastructure deal, calling it long overdue. Biden takes major step in putting $3 trillion stamp on economy and jobs. Conflicting goals explain why millions of job seekers aren't getting hired. Most Americans charged in January 6 riot had no ties to far-right groups. Prices up 6.2% in October over a year ago, the largest annual rise in 30 years. Democrats' lofty tax agenda imperiled by resistance from within. 4.4 million Americans quit jobs in September, breaking records set in August. Facebook's internal research found higher usage with newsfeed algorithm. Biden approval hits new low as economic discontent rises, poll finds. Democrats fear consequences after Biden underestimated U.S. problems. D.C. will no longer require masks in many public settings. 2 men convicted in Malcolm X's assassination to be exonerated Thursday. Oklahoma governor commutes Julius Jones's sentence hours before execution. House approves $2 trillion spending plan. As Biden agenda advances in Congress, White House weighs new offensive on inflation. Squad of Trump loyalists see its influence grow amid demands for political purity in GOP. Driver suspected of killing 5 was speeding away from knife fight, officials say. Biden authorizes use of strategic oil reserves to help offset high gas prices. As COVID cases rise, Americans weigh how to celebrate Thanksgiving. Allies press White House to focus more and say more on inflation. WHO deems new coronavirus strain a variant of concern as countries impose travel bans. With much still to learn about Omicron variant, here's what is known so far. As variant is detected around world, travel bans may be too late, experts say. Biden says Omicron variant is cause for concern, but not a cause for panic. White House aides search for contingency funds as they monitor Omicron. A headline for every day of December 2021. Justices hear arguments over Mississippi abortion law challenging Roe v. Wade. House and Senate leaders announce deal as they race to avert shutdown. GOP tactics herald grim new era of governing for Biden and Democrats. Parents of Michigan shooting suspect held on bond after overnight arrests. Bob Dole, GOP leader who sought presidency 3 times, dies at 98. Sidney Powell, nonprofit, raised $14 million spreading falsehoods. Amid growing tensions, Biden and Putin discuss Ukraine and call. World is unprepared for next pandemic, report says. Rapid virus tests still hard to find in many places despite Biden vows. Prices climbed 6.8%, marking nearly 40-year high for inflation. More than 70 estimated dead in Kentucky after tornadoes hit several states. We're hoping for miracles, Kentucky governor says. Biden to travel to Kentucky, where governor says 64 confirmed dead. D.C. Attorney General sues Proud Boys and Oath Keepers over January 6th attack. In corporate America, a striking race gap. Wisconsin emerges as front line in war over the 2020 vote. Hot economy collides with huge virus surge in pandemic's latest twist. Omicron and holidays unleash scramble for tests across U.S. Manchin says he can't vote for $2 trillion plan, deals potentially fatal blow to Biden's economic agenda. NYC seeks federal help as U.S. braces for record cases. Biden to expand access to free home tests, send resources to aid hospitals in need. Biden aides see March 2021 package as initial economic buffer against Omicron. Omicron a threat to efforts to end vaccine inequity and pandemic, experts warn. More than 3,000 flights canceled worldwide on Christmas Eve and Christmas. Anger over mask rules, pandemic restrictions spurs states to curb health officials' power. The pandemic has caused nearly 2 years of collective trauma. Many people are near a breaking point. Pandemic battle is primarily a state-level fight, Biden tells governors. Severe Omicron infection unlikely in healthy, boosted people. Questions linger for older, at-risk populations. Preliminary data suggests Omicron may be less severe than Delta, Fauci says. Hospitalizations comparatively low as Omicron spikes, CDC director says. As Omicron spreads, New York City is once again a center of the pandemic.